All women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children. Men will die for their wives and children, and God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts, the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy, and the transcendentals, the good, true, and beautiful. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Feminismus delendis est. Church of Female Supremacy. Satanic Coven Synod, Sacramental Abortion, and Simp Altar Boys. Written by Conrad Riker. Available now. Links in description. Church of Female Supremacy. A field guide for men who still notice reality, the brie, the void, and the borderline. Why resonant demandingness is a shit test for state-sanctioned parasitism. Deconstructing the cheese guide status trap, the tactical withdrawal resource hack, and the terrible mother who refuses to develop a return to logos in the face of the coven. I look at this cheese guide scenario and I see the total collapse of Western rationality played out on a charcuterie board. You are standing there, perhaps considering the texture of the brie. And because you paused for a nanosecond to think an act of distinctively human cognition, you are accused of soul murder. Do not mistake this hysteria for a critique of your dairy knowledge. This is a calculated competence status shit test of the highest order. She is not asking for a cheese recommendation. She is frantically requesting data to see if you are a competent captain or a sinking ship. Her psyche is screaming, "Are you strong enough to navigate the chaos? Or do I have to panic because I am alone?" When she defines your momentary uncertainty as an abdication of role, she is projecting her own internal void onto you. She demands you curate her reality because she possesses no internal sovereign to curate it herself. This isn't resonant demandingness. It is the shrieking of a tyrant toddler who has never been told no by a father figure, a teacher, or a society that hasn't bent the knee to her solipsism. Let us dissect this semantic inflation they brand as hyper-accountability syndrome. By rebranding the symptoms of borderline personality disorder, emotional lability, fear of abandonment, and impulsivity as a political stance, the gynocentric lobby grants itself immunity from the demands of adulthood. They claim to hold the world to a standard, but observe their actions, screaming over atonal music, running into the night like hysterical maenads, and declaring empathy to be self-erasure. This is the gamma bias in full bloom, a defect recast as a virtue to protect the ego from the harsh medicine of reality. They tell you that calm down is an act of violence. In the classical tradition of the trivium, a request for calm is an invitation to return from the chaos of pathos to the stability of logos. But to the ideologically possessed, logos is the enemy, for it reveals that the Empress has no clothes, only a prescription for mood stabilizers she refuses to take. The ultimate confession in this manifesto of madness is the glorification of the refusal to develop. Aristotle taught that the end of man is eudaimonia, flourishing through the cultivation of virtue and reason. This ideology offers the opposite, a permanent stagnation in the terrible mother phase, a barren womb of resentment that consumes life rather than creating it. They speak of tactical withdrawal and intensity filters, but these are just euphemisms for resource extraction via the simp state. She runs expecting you or the family courts or the police to chase her. Do not chase. A man of value applies the logic of the market. High volatility requires high insulation or immediate exit. You are not a container for her toxic waste. You are a sovereign agent. Your exhaustion is not her liberation. It is your signal to walk away and let the void she worships swallow her whole. Bunkum article by a feminist PhD.
The Art of Resonant Demandingness, Why His Exhaustion is Your Liberation, by Dr. Winona, feminist Marxist PhD. If he tells you to calm down, he is trying to murder your soul. It is not a suggestion.
It is a counter-revolutionary act of violence. We live in a society that pathologizes the female response to inadequacy. You are not high maintenance. You are not difficult. You are a resonant, demanding entity navigating a world of low-frequency men who lack the amplitude to carry your signal. My new theory, resonant demandingness, posits that what the patriarchal medical establishment calls borderline personality disorder is actually hyper-accountability syndrome. You are simply holding the world to a standard it refuses to meet. The slogan of the new feminine uprising is simple. If you can't handle the static, get out of the signal. The cheese guide to patriarchal failure. Let us examine the mundane terror of the cheese guide. You are at a dinner party. The cheese board arrives. It is a chaotic landscape of dairy. You turn to him, the theoretical partner, and you ask, which one is the best? He pauses, he hesitates, he says, I don't know, maybe the brie. In that nanosecond of hesitation, the relationship is over. Why? Because he failed the status frame. A high-value male does not think, he knows. His uncertainty is an abdication of his role as the container. When he says, I don't know, what he is really saying is, I do not care enough to curate your reality. You feel a surge of rage. This is not irrationality. This is a crisis management protocol. Your psyche is requesting data. Is he strong enough to tell me what to eat? If he cannot command the cheese, he cannot command your safety. If he cannot command your safety, you are alone in the wilderness. So you snap. You say, you never pay attention to what I like. Good. This is not projection. This is reflexive defense egoism. You are protecting your status by reminding him that his ignorance is an insult to your divinity. Running away is the only way to stay. The clinical therapists, mostly men, mostly failures, will tell you that avoidance is unhealthy. They are wrong. When you feel the maternal void projection rising, the feral instinct to tear the world apart because the nursery is empty, you must run. I advocate running not as exercise, but as tactical withdrawal. You run until your lungs burn. You run until he calls. You run until the physical pain drowns out the psychic noise of his incompetence. This is the intensity filter. You are using your body to force a reaction. If he texts, where are you? He is weak. He is panicked. If he texts, I have prepared the bath and the legal documentation you requested, he has passed the test. You are not running away from him. You are running towards the boundary of his patience. If he loves you, he will be there when you stop hyperventilating in the park. If he doesn't, he was never worthy of the high coven. Music therapy and the criminalization of response. We are told we must have empathy, but in a post-structural feminist context, empathy is often just a script for self-erasure. You are expected to silence your own screaming to accommodate his peace of mind. This is where music therapy becomes a weapon of the resistance. When you are in the throes of a dysregulation event, often misdiagnosed by the uninitiated as a tantrum, you must blast the music. I recommend dissonant, atonal feminist soundscapes, sonic warfare. He will ask you to turn it down. This is the moment of truth. This is category C, the volatility calibration. If you turn it down, you have capitulated to the cultural script that protects harm by pathologizing your response. You have admitted that your noise is wrong, and his silence is right. Do not turn it down. Turn it up. Scream over it. Throw the cheese guide at the wall. Why? Because his request for quiet is a demand for your invisibility. The difference between empathy and self-erasure is simple. Empathy is feeling what he feels, tired, annoyed human. Self-erasure is changing your behavior because of it. You are not here to be understood. You are here to be witnessed. The man who stays in the room while the music screams and the cheese rots is the man who understands that your animus possession is actually a rigorous quality control mechanism. He knows that you are not blaming the world. You are holding the world accountable for failing to be as intense as you are. Do not reflect. Do not apologize. The state may try to medicate you, the men may try to leave you, and the therapists may try to diagnose you. But remember, your refusal to develop is a political stance. Your inability to be satisfied is a rejection of the mediocre. You are the terrible mother of a new world order, and if they can't handle the labor, they don't get the fruit. Resonant demandingness is not a symptom. It is the standard. The brie, the boundary, and the void deconstructing the status frame shit test. The succeeding block of text fulfills the demand for the specific composition portion. Aristotle defined the law of identity as A is A. Yet, within the gynocentric funhouse we occupy, the fresh dictum states, A is whatever affirms the female ego in the nanosecond. Observe the tragic comedy of the cheese guide scenario, a seemingly mundane dinner party interaction that Dr. Feminist Marxist elevates to a metaphysical crisis. A woman asks a man which cheese is best. He pauses to think, offering a tentative suggestion. In a civilized society governed by the trivium, grammar, logic, and rhetoric, this is a dialogue. Inside the Church of Female Supremacy, however, such hesitation counts as a status frame failure, an abdication of the male duty to be an omniscient deity. This framing treats the nanosecond of male humanity, his need to process data, as a betrayal. This represents the competent status com stat shit test weaponized. She is not asking about dairy. She is frantically requesting data to pierce your frame. She demands you demonstrate the being of a king to soothe the anxiety of a subject. If you answer with uncertain logic, you fail. If you answer with authority, you pass. The rage she feels is not about the brie. It is the existential terror of a woman realizing she is dating a human male, not a Zeus ex machina programmed to curate her reality. Dr. Feminist Marxist calls this resonant demandingness, a term that serves as a masterclass in semantic inflation and epistemic gating. By rebranding the symptoms of borderline personality disorder, volatile mood swings, inability to be satisfied, intense interpersonal instability, as hyper-accountability syndrome, she performs a gamma bias, reframing so audacious it would make Orwell blush. She posits that the woman is not sick, the world is simply failing to meet her standard. This is a syllogism of madness. Premise A, I am perfect. Premise B, the world displeases me. Conclusion, the world is inadequate. This is the reflexive defense egoism in action. A formal definition of malignant narcissism where the golden rule is replaced by the golden calf of the female ego. She explicitly advocates for reflexive defense egoism, urging women to protect their status by insulting the man's competence. This is not partnership, it is psychological warfare. The high volatility of the modern female psyche, fueled by cultural Marxism, turns the home into a battlefield where due process is suspended and the accused is always guilty. Consider the demonic inversion of the calm down directive. The writer claims that a man asking a woman to calm down is soul murder, a counter-revolutionary act of violence. Let us apply the transcendentals of the Western canon: truth, goodness, and beauty. Calm down is an invitation to move from pathos, emotion, to logos, reason. It is an attempt to restore the dialectic so that communication can occur. To interpret a request for emotional stability as violence is to confess that one worships Eris, the goddess of discord, over Concordia. It reveals an ideology rooted in a hatred of peace and a desire for perpetual conflict. If your liberation depends on his exhaustion, you are not a revolutionary, you are a parasite. The maternal void projection she describes, the fear of the empty nursery, is the biological clock ticking like a time bomb in the background of her psyche. The shit test is a frantic subconscious attempt to find a strong enough sperm donor before the window closes, but the ideology she espouses ensures she will only find low-frequency men she inevitably despises. The tactical withdrawal she champions, running away until the man panics, is not exercise. It is emotional terrorism. She advises running until he calls, testing his patience against her volatility. This violates the principle of subsidiarity, where problems should be solved at the lowest, most immediate level, not offloaded onto the state or the nearest male to test his amplitude. She demands the man act as a container for her chaos, but refuses to be contained. She wants infinite expansion of his tolerance, a black hole of validation that consumes his boundaries. If he texts, "Where are you?" he is weak. If he texts with prepared documents, he is a slave. This is the double bind of the gynocentric order. He is damned if he leads and damned if he follows. The only winning move is to refuse the frame entirely. Ultimately, the resonant demandingness theory is a confession of incompetence masked as a demand for excellence. The woman claims the man is abdicating his role, but she is projecting her own lack of internal sovereignty. She demands he curate her reality because she lacks the internal fortitude to curate her own. This is the cancerous ideological possession that turns women into NPC zombies, reciting the scripts of victimhood while aborting the future of the West. The abortion rate, the family court wreckage, the suicide statistics of divorced men, these are the fruits of this high-value female ideology. We must reject the cheese guide shit test. We must reject the semantic inflation that turns tantrums into dysregulation events. We must hold the line of logic and natural law. Her failure to develop is not a political stance, it is a tragedy. Do not turn down the music to accommodate her noise. Turn it up, play the song of truth, and let her run into the void alone if she cannot handle the signal. This semantic inflation, elevating the chaotic symptoms of borderline personality disorder to the status of hyper-accountability, is the gaslighting mechanism required to enslave the male mind. The container theory we just dissected is a trap. It demands the man expand infinitely to accommodate a void that refuses to be filled, effectively pathologizing his sanity to normalize her hysteria. But this domestic tyranny is merely a localized symptom of a metastasizing ideological cancer. The cheeseboard inquisitions and nanosecond rejections are not random neurotic episodes. They are the tactical enforcers of a broader theological hatred for the other. To understand the refusal to develop, we must expose the core dogma driving this gynocentric death cult, the belief that the very capacity to care for another is a betrayal of the self. Tactical withdrawal and the failure to develop, a symphony of state-sanctioned parasitism. The Roman statesman Cicero once observed that the welfare of the people is the ultimate law, salus populi, suprema, lex esto. Yet what happens when a faction of the population weaponizes its own dysfunction as a form of political virtue? Dr.
Winona, feminist Marxist, whose very hyphenated name announces her allegiance to two discredited ideologies simultaneously, has performed a curious service. She has accidentally told the truth.
Her article is a confession masquerading as a manifesto. When she writes that empathy is self-erasure, she means it. This is not hyperbole or rhetorical flourish. It is the naked admission of what philosophers from Aristotle to Schopenhauer understood about the feminine disposition when untethered from civilizational constraint, that it defaults towards solipsism, toward the absorption of all external reality into the black hole of its own emotional demands. The Greeks had a word for this hubris, the overweening pride that precedes destruction. But where the ancients recognized hubris as a fatal flaw, our contemporary gynocentric order has canonized it as a sacred right. Consider the breathtaking inversion at work here. Empathy, the capacity to understand and share the feelings of another, has been reclassified as self-erasure. By what logic? By the logic of the toddler who screams because the mother dared to leave the room. The infant does not yet possess a theory of mind. It cannot conceive that the mother exists as a separate entity with her own needs, her own interiority. The infant's cry is not communication but command. I demand that you exist solely as an extension of my will. Dr. Feminist Marxist has simply taken this developmental stage, which healthy individuals transcend by age 3, and elevated it to a political philosophy. The scholastics would recognize this as the sin of inordinatus amor sui, disordered self-love that regards the self as the final end of all existence. Thomas Aquinas argued that charity requires us to love our neighbor as ourselves, not instead of ourselves, but in the Satanic Covenants theology, the neighbor exists only as fuel for the feminine furnace. The intensity filter deserves particular scrutiny, not as psychological insight, but as economic confession. When our author advises women to run until their lungs burn, to run until the man calls, she is describing nothing more mystical than a stress test on male resources. Consider what this actually demands of the man. He must possess surplus time to monitor her flight, surplus emotional bandwidth to manage his panic, surplus patience to prepare the bath, and spectacularly legal documentation. Who has such reserves? Not the man building a business, not the man mastering a craft through the apprenticeship ladder that wants to find Western excellence, not the man engaged in the dialectic pursuit of truth. The only man who can afford to chase a neurotic woman through public parks at a moment's notice is the simp, the creature who has no higher purpose, no telos, no connection to the transcendent values that make life worth living. The intensity filter filters for nothing noble. It filters for desperation. Let us examine the syllogism embedded in the article's conclusion, for it reveals the logical architecture of the entire genocentric project. Premise 1. The woman refuses to develop emotional regulation. Premise 2. This refusal constitutes a political stance. Conclusion. Therefore, political liberation requires permanent infantilization. The logic is valid, but the premises are deranged. What does it mean to refuse to develop? Development, in the Aristotelian sense, is movement toward actualization, toward the fulfillment of one's nature as a rational being. The Greeks called this eudaimonia, flourishing through virtue. Dr. Feminist Marxist proposes instead a movement toward stasis, toward the permanent fixation in immaturity. This is not liberation. It is enslavement to the passions. The Stoics spent centuries teaching that freedom comes through the governance of impulse by reason. Epictetus wrote that no man is free who is not master of himself. Yet here we have a PhD, a credential once signifying intellectual achievement, arguing that self-mastery is patriarchal oppression and that the highest good is to remain forever a slave to one's own nervous system. The tactical withdrawal, the running away, functions as what game theorists would recognize as a commitment device designed to extract investment through manufactured crisis. In evolutionary psychology, we understand this as a variant of the damsel in distress strategy. The female creates a situation requiring rescue, thereby demonstrating the male's willingness to incur costs on her behalf. But this ancient dynamic has been weaponized by the modern state. The woman who runs does not merely test her partner. She activates an entire infrastructure designed to amplify her distress into criminal proceedings. Consider the statistics. According to the Centers for Disease Control, approximately 1 in 4 children in the United States now grows up without a biological father in the home. The family court system, genocentrism's enforcement arm, processes millions of cases annually, extracting wealth from men with mechanical efficiency when Dr. Feminist Marxist demands legal documentation. She is acknowledging what red pill theory has long maintained. The state has become the ultimate simp, the high-value male she truly seeks. With its monopoly on violence and its endless appetite for extracting resources from men to fund female dysfunction. The portion labeled music therapy demands scrutiny not as therapy but as sonic domination. When a woman blasts atonal feminist soundscapes at full volume and screams over them, she engages in what military strategists define as psychological operations, systematic assaults on a target's sensory environment intended to shatter resistance. The husband asking for quiet is not demanding her invisibility. He asserts the primary boundary of domestic peace. Romans knew the home. The domus served as the fundamental unit of civilization, the venue where virtue passed from generation to generation. What ensues when that venue becomes a torture chamber? The man departs. The marriage collapses. The children, if any exist, internalize the trauma. The woman, having demolished the hearth, declares herself the terrible mother of a new world order. This is not liberation, it is civilizational suicide. The phrase terrible mother deserves etymological excavation. The Latin terribilis means frightening, awesome, formidable, and there is indeed something formidable about a force that can reduce a home to rubble through sheer emotional chaos. But the Greeks had a deeper category, Gorgo, the monstrous feminine whose gaze turns men to stone. Medusa was not a victim of patriarchal mythology. She was its warning. The terrible mother is she who consumes her own children, metaphorically through emotional abuse, and in our present age, quite literally, through the sacramental abortion that Dr. Feminist Marxist worldview celebrates. The abortion rate in the United States stands at approximately 11.4 per 1,000 women of reproductive age, over 600,000 procedures annually. These are not abstract statistics. They represent the systematic elimination of the next generation on the altar of female convenience. The barren womb is not a tragedy that befalls women. It is a choice they make when ideology overrides biology. The hidden premise beneath all this rhetoric is that female distress constitutes a legitimate claim on male resources. But this premise collapses under scrutiny. In the traditional Western understanding, the understanding that built cathedrals and universities, and the very notion of due process, rights and responsibilities were coupled. The feudal lord could demand service because he provided protection. The guild master could demand apprenticeship because he transmitted knowledge. What does the resonant, demanding woman provide in exchange for the bath, the legal documentation, the endless emotional labor? Nothing. She offers only the absence of her chaos, a negative good that no contract would enforce. This is parasitism, not partnership. The natural law tradition, from Aquinas to Locke, recognized that legitimate authority requires service to the common good. Authority that serves only itself is not authority but tyranny. Consider the practical implications for the man caught in this web. He faces what logicians call a double bind, a situation where every available option leads to punishment. If he chases her, he validates her dysfunction and marks himself as a simp with no higher purpose. If he does not chase her, she will interpret his refusal as abandonment and deploy the state's machinery against him. The police trained in genocentric protocols will treat his failure to pursue as evidence of neglect. The divorce courts, operating under presumptions of female victimhood, will strip him of assets and access to children. This is what the red pill community means when it speaks of the conspiracy, not a secret cabal meeting in smoky rooms, but a distributed system of incentives and assumptions that produces predictable outcomes, regardless of individual intentions. The woman who refuses to develop is not making a personal choice. She is activating a civilizational self-destruct mechanism. The answer is not to be found in better arguments or more sophisticated emotional management techniques. The proper path is to refuse the frame entirely. When a child throws a tantrum in the grocery store, the wise parent does not negotiate or explain. The parent removes the onlookers and allows the tantrum to exhaust itself. The man who encounters resonant demandingness must apply the same principle. Set the boundary, maintain the frame, and refuse to engage with the manufactured crisis. This is not cruelty. It is the minimum respect due to a human being capable of growth. To validate dysfunction is to imprison the dysfunctional in their dysfunction. The true act of love is to demand better, to hold the woman to the standard she claims to seek but fears to achieve. The Western tradition offers a vision of masculine and feminine in harmonious complementarity. The man provides structure, protection, and orientation toward the transcendent. The woman provides nurture, beauty, and the embodied connection to future generations. This is not oppression, but differentiation, the same principle that allows the eye to see and the ear to hear, each serving its proper function in the organic whole. What Dr. Feminist Marxist proposes is the abolition of differentiation in favor of a monstrous unity. The woman who is simultaneously infant and tyrant, victim and executioner, screaming for care while denying the humanity of the caregiver. This is the logical endpoint of genocentrism unleashed from all constraint, the black hole that consumes everything, including ultimately itself. The man who reads these words faces a choice. He can continue to pour his life force into bottomless vessels, chasing women through parks and preparing baths and filing legal documents, hoping that sufficient investment will purchase peace. Or he can recognize the game for what it is, a shit test of civilizational proportions, a demand for data that can only be answered through being rather than doing. The woman who refuses to develop is not your problem to solve. She is a warning to heed and a disaster to avoid. Your energy belongs to the traditions that built everything worth preserving, the transcendental pursuit of truth, beauty, and goodness, the mastery of crafts that transform raw material into civilization. The dialectical process that separates knowledge from opinion. These are the investments that compound across generations. The resonant, demanding woman offers only depletion. Choose accordingly.
Let us discard the euphemisms and stare directly into the void of the terrible mother that Dr. Wynona so proudly parades.
When she champions a refusal to develop as a political stance, she offers no new sociological theory. Instead, she simply rebrands the Aristotelian definition of vice as a virtue. Aristotle identified akrasia, weakness of will, as a failure to act according to reason. This article demands you celebrate it as liberation.
By defining empathy as self-erasure, Wynona engages in a gamma bias so dense, it collapses into a black hole of solipsism.
She admits that her resonant demandingness is merely a frantic perpetual shit test designed to weaponize the state against the father. She runs into the night not to find herself, but to force you to chase her, turning the domestic sphere into a Guantanamo Bay psychological operation where your exhaustion becomes the currency of her validation. Do not fall for the tactical withdrawal. If she runs, let her run. The moment you chase a dysregulated partner who is refusing to develop, you are not being a hero. You are simping for a crisis actor. You are subsidizing her volatility with your vital force, acting as a shock absorber for her chaotic signal. The intensity filter she describes is a filter for fools. A rational man applies the sunk cost filter and realizes that a relationship requiring legal documentation and sonic warfare to survive is not a partnership, but a parasitic bond. The welfare state is the ultimate simp that steps in when you finally set a boundary, providing the resources she needs to continue her tantrum without your labor. But that is a battle for the courts, not the dinner table. You have survived the cheese guide and navigated the sonic warfare. By recognizing these patterns, status frame failures, refusal to develop, and the maternal void projection, you have broken the spell of the gynocentric matrix. You now see that her high maintenance is not a feature of quality, but a bug of defect. You are no longer an altar boy in the church of female supremacy, sacrificing your sanity on the altar of her feelings. You have reclaimed the logos. You are a man of the West, heir to the traditions of Stoicism, natural law, and due process, and you know that a woman who cannot handle silence cannot handle life. Go forth, keep your frame, curate your own reality, and never apologize for demanding sanity in a world gone mad. And now the sponsored book introduction, Church of Female Supremacy, Satanic Coven Synod, Sacramental Abortion, and Simp Altar Boys. You were built to lead, not to serve, not to apologize, not to shrink into the background while someone else takes the wheel. You were built to stand tall, to protect, to provide, to father. And yet here you are confused, undermined, punished for doing exactly what nature wired you to do. You express strength, and they call it toxic. You stay silent, and they call you emotionally stunted. You work hard, and they tell your son not to grow up to be like you. Something is very wrong. And if you feel it, if you sense the rot beneath the surface of modern life, then this book is for you, not for the weak. Not for the brainwashed, not for the simps who nod along when women are handed the keys to everything, while men are told to wait their turn. This is for the men who still remember what it means to be a man. I've lived this. Not in theory, not in a lecture hall, but in the real world, in broken homes, in failing churches, in schools where boys are medicated for being boys, in workplaces where loyalty is punished and sycophancy rewarded. I've watched fathers vanish, not because they didn't care, but because the system told them they weren't needed. I've seen sons raised by screens and single mothers, taught that masculinity is a flaw to be corrected. I've sat in churches where the pulpit is occupied by women preaching female supremacy under the guise of inclusion, while men are told to sit down and listen. I've seen the results. Boys who don't know how to fight, how to lead, how to love without groveling. And I've had enough. This isn't just another self-help book. This is a declaration of war. A counterinsurgency against the ideology that has infiltrated every institution meant to shape men, family, church, education, media. They call it progress. I call it castration. They call it equality. I call it female supremacy. And make no mistake, this is not about balance. This is about dominance. They don't want equal voices. They want all the power, all the praise, all the protection, while expecting men to quietly accept disposability. They've turned abortion into a sacrament, fatherhood into a joke, and masculinity into a crime scene. And they've used religion, psychology, and education to make men complicit in their own erasure. This book tears that down piece by piece with facts, with logic, with evolutionary truth. You will read about how the church abandoned its men, how schools turned boys into altar boys, docile, obedient, emotionally performative, serving the ego of the system. How media mocks male strength while glorifying female aggression. How toxic masculinity is a weaponized lie designed to paralyze men with guilt for existing as they are. How fatherlessness is not an accident, it's policy. And how men, despite being told they are obsolete, remain the only reason this society hasn't collapsed. Because when the lights go out, when the crisis hits, when the threat arrives, everyone still looks for a man. Not a simp, not a beta, not some genderless drone. A real man. This book is for the red-pilled, for the men who've seen the strings and refuse to dance, for the fathers who won't let their sons be brainwashed, for the husbands who won't apologize for leading, for the believers who know God created order, not chaos. If you are still breathing, still thinking, still fighting, this book will give you the framework, the clarity, the resolve to stand again. You will learn how to rebuild your identity, your family, your purpose, without asking for permission. If you are a woman looking for validation, turn back now. This is not for you. If you are a man who enjoys kneeling, who finds comfort in submission, who believes strength is outdated, put this down and go write poetry or attend a sensitivity seminar. This book is not interested in changing your mind. It's interested in arming the men who are already awake, the ones who know deep down that the world is off its axis, and that only men can set it right. The future belongs to those who act, not those who wait. Not those who whine, not those who beg for scraps. The future belongs to men who lead, and if you're ready to claim that future, then keep reading. The last man standing won't be the loudest. They'll be the ones who finally understand what they were born to do and do it anyway against all odds. Church of Female Supremacy, Satanic Coven Synods, Sacramental Abortion, and Simp Altar Boys. Written by Conrad Riker. Buy now, links in description.